All right, Dream Think Doers. I always get excited for these interviews, but this one, man, I'm really feeling it. Today we are talking with Chad Williams. Now, get this: Chad is a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and now he's a speaker and best-selling author. Get this: the days before Chad was to report to military duty, he turned on the TV and was greeted to these horrifying images of his friend and mentor, U.S. Navy SEAL Scott Helvenston, being brutally murdered in a premeditated ambush on the roads of Fallujah. Now, I think this would have convinced a lot of people like just totally bail out. But instead, it inspired Chad to double down on his dream. And he followed in Scott's footsteps and completed the U.S. military's most difficult and grueling training to become a Navy SEAL. He was one of only 13 in a class of 173 to make it straight through to graduation. And then after that, Chad served as a SEAL on SEAL Team 1 and SEAL Team 7, completing tours of duty in the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Iraq. And then after completing those 6 years of service, Chad went on to author his best-selling book, Seal of God. Now, today, Chad is speaking for Fortune 500 companies, as well as he's at faith-based events around the country, hundreds of them. He also contributes no-holds-barred expert analysis related to military affairs and subjects of leadership and perseverance for major news networks like Fox and CNN. Chad has and truly continues to live a dream think do life. So I'm so excited and honored to get to have this conversation with him. But get this, I know many of you know this. I wanted input on the questions you guys wanted to ask, and you guys responded like crazy. So we're going to get to some of your questions too in this conversation. I can't wait for that. So let's get to this. Chad, welcome to Dream Think Do, brother.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be with you.
I'll tell you what, it was fun. I always do. I enjoy research before everybody I talk to, but yours, I told you before we hit record, I got lost because there was just so much great content. You've been living this amazing story. So I've got a billion questions. So I'm glad this episode's going to be 5 hours long.
Let's go.
We'll try to keep it short. So here's the thing. So often we talk with people who have gone out and done amazing things or achieved a dream job and all of that. And then there's adversity along the way, right? It's never perfect. It's never easy, but there's adversity along the way. One of the things though, I loved about your story as I was doing the research was, you really tell the story of maybe high school wasn't the best for you academically, but you really did start to get clear on this dream of being a SEAL, of being in, special ops. But it sounds like your dad, your parents are very loving, but it sounds like your dad was not super supportive of this idea. So let's time travel back a little bit and let's talk about you sharing this idea with your dad, and he came up with a very creative, what he thought a very creative solution to get you out of that idea.
What I love is my dad was very thoughtful in this process, and he had good reason to sort of give me a test fire, in a way. Because, growing up, I would get obsessed with something like a sport, baseball or skateboarding. I'd get so into it that, with skateboarding, I was sponsored by Vans shoes. I was doing a lot of competing, but eventually I kind of get burned out on it. Then I really got into sport fishing, working on boats and going out, 100 miles into the ocean, filling up 2,000-pound holes of tuna and yellowtail, and thinking I want to be a captain of a boat, one day, but kind of getting burned out and not doing that so much anymore. And so I was picking up a lot of things, kind of exploiting them, and then getting burned out and stopping, putting them down. And so as I'm getting into my first year of junior college and really not into the junior college stuff, and there's no accountability showing up there, not like high school, no phone calls going home that Chad wasn't there today. So I'm failing all my classes. And it's just because I'm not there. I'm surfing, hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
But now the end of the year is coming up, time to take finals. I'm pulling into that school parking lot. And that's when it really hit me. And I did not like what hit me.
Yeah.
What hit me was, man, I am turning out to be a loser. I mean, the kind of
You're
guy
on this trajectory, right? Yeah.
No young person wants to live a wasted life.
Right.
And so when you're young, you always feel like you have time in front of you, to figure things out. You can kind of procrastinate it a little bit, but it's almost like as I pulled into that parking lot, the deadline was hitting me, that if I don't turn things around, I will be on a forever trajectory
Yeah.
of being a loser. All my peers are passing me by. I'm not making it, even at a local community college. So I felt like the position that I was in, as much as I did not like that feeling, I think it was a good place for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I act better, when the heat is on.
Yeah.
That saying, the greater the need, the greater the results. My
Yeah.
back felt like it was up against the wall. And so now I'm actually doing some deep thinking that I wasn't doing before, trying to capture the vision. Like, what direction do I want to go in with my life? And in the SEAL teams, we have this saying, it's a fundamental of shooting. And I think it has everything to do with goal setting. Because if you think about it, when you're shooting, your goal, right, is to put a round through a target. And
Yeah.
so in the SEAL teams, what we say is aim small, miss small. And the
Yeah.
idea behind that is, if I'm just aiming at some enemy insurgent that's bearing down on my team, and my goal is just to put a round through him somewhere, well, if I miss, what happens? I'm completely off, right? I haven't touched him. But if I say, no, I'm not just trying to hit this guy somewhere, I'm going to aim small. I'm looking for the second button down on his t-shirt. Got it. Now I've got that in my crosshairs. I'm aiming very small. And if I miss, the miss will be small as well. So maybe I don't hit that button, but guess what? I still find myself hitting the target that I'm going
Right.
for.
Right.
And so the more clarity that we could bring to whatever goal or target it is that we have in mind in our crosshairs, the better shot we have of actually being on target, hitting the goal we're going for. So I start with the general. This is broad, this is wide. Like, I don't want to live a wasted life. I want to do something significant.
Yeah.
And then I start bringing it in, like, okay, I know what I want to do. I want to join the military, but focusing in more, what branch will it be? The Navy, I want to be special for. I know what I want to be. I want to be a Navy SEAL. So that was the button that I was
Yeah.
aiming
Just,
for at that point.
yeah.
And once I had that figured out, honestly, I felt this huge relief, because now I know
Yeah.
what my target is. The worst feeling in the world is aiming at nothing and hoping that you're going to hit something.
Right.
Just kind of hoping, like, we'll just figure it out when we get in the arena. Like, I'll just discover what my life's purpose is. It doesn't work that way. We don't ever get on a airplane that way, hoping it's going to take us to our destination, or a
Right.
ship that way. You better know where that thing is going before you step on. So now that I had my target, it was just a matter of practical steps, slowly squeezing that trigger,
Yeah.
before I get there. But of course, I got to let my dad know, as you mentioned, some bad news and good news as I presented it to him. So I'm letting him know all the bad that's going on, not passing any of these classes. And so he's like, yeah, and the good news? I was waiting for that. It's all right, Dad, I got a plan. I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. And so now you can kind of put yourself in his shoes. It's like, look at your son. He, God bless him. He gets obsessed with something. He picks it up. He does pretty good with it, but he doesn't stick with it. And so he's just reminding me, son, joining the military is not like anything you've ever done in the past. It's not like playing ball or skateboarding or going to some local community college. He says, if you join the military and then you find out it's not for you, or suppose you quit and don't make it through SEAL training, just to be clear, you will still be in the military. And
Yeah.
you're probably going to get a job like chipping paint off some boat off the coast of Japan.
Right.
And so he does have a point right there. And I realized that, by all outward appearances, this doesn't look good, but I know my heart is set on this. I want it so bad. I've heard you got to be willing to die before you quit. And those that quit, they ring a brass bell 3 times in front of everybody, signifying that that's what they've done, as they take their class helmet with their name, their rank, their class number, and they lay it down next to this bell, and it remains there in the chronological order of when guys quit. And I just knew my helmet's never going there. I'm not going to ring that bell. I just need my opportunity to show up, and I'll take it from there.
Wow.
And so what my dad did, very clever, somehow, I still don't know how, I got to find out how he pulled this off, but he has a way of getting a hold of people in high places sometimes. Like, he'll just get like some CEO on the phone. Like, sometimes they're even like, how did you get this number? Right? So he's a very good
That's dad's
researcher.
for you. We just have a way, right?
Yeah. And so he gets this number to this Navy SEAL by the name of Scott Helvenston, and he tells him, like, hey, look, my son wants to be a Navy SEAL, but here's the deal. He has no idea what he's getting signed up for. So he doesn't know what he's getting involved in. Would you be willing to meet up with my son and what I'm asking you to do? I need you to give him a wake up call. Like, I need you to crush him, just beat him down,
Just
bury him if
crush
you
him.
can. And so he didn't get a reply right then and there on the phone. The guy ended up getting back to him in an email. And so my dad invites me to his room one day. And he says, so you really want to do this, huh? You want to be a SEAL? I'm like, yeah, Dad, I want to be a SEAL. He goes, great. Well, I set up a workout for you with a Navy SEAL. Check out my computer screen. And I'll never forget looking at the computer screen, not seeing any context at all, and just a one-liner. All it says is, can Chad come out and play tomorrow? And I'm like, play? I'm like, Dad, let me get this straight. You met some guy off the internet, says he wants to play with me, says he's a Navy SEAL, and you're arranging this right now? He goes, no, he's a SEAL, son. I'm trying to educate Dad. Like, you can't trust everything someone tells you on the web, Dad. And he goes, this guy's a SEAL. I'm like,
Stranger
all right.
danger, Dad. Have you ever heard
Exactly.
of stranger danger? Yeah.
I did not trust it, but he really wants this to happen. All right, fine. I'll go meet up with this guy. Well, little did I know that this was a big setup. And so I meet up with this Navy SEAL in a beach parking lot in Oceanside, California. He's pointing his finger at me, calling me Bubba from the very beginning, telling me, get on over here. He's got me dropped down doing these push-ups and pull-ups, and I'm hanging in there, sends me off on a run out into the wetlands, says he'll catch up with me. And so I'm looking back and I'm not seeing this Navy SEAL. And so as I'm running a little bit more, of course, being this teenage, arrogant punk kid, I start thinking, maybe I'm too fast.
Right.
Maybe I'm too fast for this
Try to
Navy
keep
SEAL.
up, Navy SEAL.
So
Yeah.
I'm celebrating. I don't know where I'm going. Just keep going down this trail, away from the ocean, out of the wetlands, away from civilization. And then I look over my shoulder one more time as I'm celebrating, and there he is in the rear view mirror. He's coming up, and he looks like the Terminator, or like that bad guy from Terminator, the T-1000 that can like morph into knife hands and chase down the moving vehicle. So he closes that gap, catches up to me, and I never saw what was coming next. Greeted by his fist impaling my stomach, and I'm just going for a ride as I'm clotheslined, like just seeing sky, feet off the ground, wind knocked out of me, back hitting the ground, poof of dirt up all around me, and you got to put yourself in my shoes.
Right.
Remember, at the time, I'm thinking, here's the only intel I have. Some guy my dad met off the internet. He's got me on the ground in the wetlands and nobody around. And so
here it is, the last day of Chad.
And I'm doing everything I can to defend myself, but this guy's like a wild animal, ragdolling me. I still remember the sound of just the threads of my shirt just ripping as he's throwing me around, and spit flying out as he's screaming in my face, and just being rained on, hitting me in the cheek and the forehead, and not understanding a word he is saying because he's so angry and just going ballistic. But then these words did come through, and they came through crystal clear. He says, you want to be a Navy SEAL? You better stay 3 paces behind me. Wow. And man, there is something about that moment, looking back, it was like the pain lifted and time froze, and I had this clarity, like, whoa, this is it, and this is for real. And if I quit right now, I just knew I'll forever be a quitter. There was something about that moment in my life where I just thought, the way I respond here, this is going to affect me the trajectory the rest of my life. Yeah. And so I just reaffirmed that initial attitude, like, I want this so bad, I'll die before I quit. And so I've got the wind knocked out of me after running as fast as I can. This is no exaggeration. I've never felt anything like that again. And he gets up and says 3 paces, turns and takes off. And I'm still struggling just to get the lungs to take something in. I feel like I'm like holding my breath, and he's taking off. And so, man, looking back, this went on for a handful of miles down this trail. He was trying to shake me, get rid of me. I hung in there. I stayed on his heels. And I never went through a more difficult singular workout, I should call it a beatdown session, than this encounter with this Navy SEAL Scott Helvenston. But I hung in there. And, there's something that could be said, I think, that comes really out of our SEAL Creed. And this was actually a hot topic recently. I don't know if you saw, but the SEAL Creed, for whatever reason, there's a lot of pressure to try and make it gender neutral. And I don't know, that's just happening with a lot of things in the world nowadays. Sure. So part of the SEAL Creed says this, and apparently it's offensive. It says that the SEAL is the common man with uncommon desire to succeed. So the offensive part there is man, right? So they tried to switch it to common civilian, or was it common citizens with uncommon desire to succeed? Just doesn't have the same ring to it, right?
Yeah, and exactly.
So, not trying to exclude women here,
right.
But come on. Thankfully, the president actually overruled that. So it should be going right back to what it was before. But here's what we need to focus in on. And this is true of a man or a woman. You could
Right.
say, women that achieve great things, whoever it is, you have your aim small, miss small, like we're talking about as a leader, as a goal setter. Well, what type of person is it that actually hits the target?
Yep.
It's not just anybody. They got to have their heart, their desire set in place for it, right? They got to want it. And so it's what we would call the common man or common woman with uncommon desire to succeed. Keyword there being desire.
Yep.
Because sometimes we have this idea in our head that it's the extraordinary people that are just born and bred and cut from under the piece of cloth, or just brought up under the right, circumstances, the right privilege, that go on and accomplish some of the elite things. We have this idea in our head. We think that life is unfair, and for other people, wow, they're just a victim of their circumstances.
Right.
What happened to them is just kind of how, the chips fell. This is the cards that they were dealt.
Yeah.
And I don't think that could be further from the truth. That is not the determiner of who actually, succeeds.
Yeah.
The determiner really is that heart and desire. I can prove that. A great example, the first day of SEAL training. First day of SEAL training, I remember showing up, 173 of us, instructor comes walking into the classroom, and he's looking at all of us, and you could hear a pin drop. He has our attention. And then he opens his mouth, says, "Gentlemen, how many of you are willing to die before you quit?" Well, that's like the mantra of everyone that's there. So we're all pounding our chest saying, "Hoo-yah!" That's our yes in SEAL training. And he goes, "Great, this is what I want you to do. Take a mental picture of the person on your left and on your right." And so we're all kind of looking around at each other. And he says, "Chances are, if you're still standing here for graduation day, that means each of these guys you just took a mental picture of, they didn't make it. Do you really think you're the one?" And I remember looking around and I'm thinking, man, like, these are some tough dudes around me. I don't see any
Yeah.
quitting them, but I know I'm not going to quit. And I'm thinking, where are the quitters going to come from? We've already suffered together. We've already gone through some beat downs with the instructors, and nobody has quit yet. So I'm just thinking, what is it going to take? And so realizing the majority of the room has got to go, I'm trying now to just pick off what I think might be some low hanging fruit. Who's going to quit here? And as I'm looking around the room, there was one guy that grabbed my attention. And he didn't grab my attention in the sense that he's going to quit. This was like, okay, well, there's one of the guys that will definitely be there for graduation day. His name was Barth, and Barth was the stud of the class. This guy was the one that just seemed like he was born and bred to be a Navy SEAL. Like he was blessed with that DNA that produced the right type of muscle and stamina to where there was never a question over who's going to get first place. It was always Barth. The argument amongst us was who's grabbing second, because he was in such a league of his own. So I'm like, well, there's one of the guys that's definitely going to be there for graduation day. And then I'm kind of like, what am I doing? I got to find guys that'll quit, not guys that make it. And I'm looking around the room and I'm struggling here. But then, oh, how could I forget about Alex Gagne? This guy, man, like, it's an insult that he's even here. Not only is he not going to make it, like, he is the exact antithesis of Barth. He is the ugly duckling of the class, always in the back on everything that we ever do, struggling to come across the finish line. He's the locker room talk. Not only is he going to quit, everyone knows he's going to be the first one to quit. And so the irony of it all is that by the time we get to the most difficult part of SEAL training, which is called Hell Week, who's amongst the first to quit? Well, it's not this guy, Alex Gagne. Amongst the first to quit is this guy, Barth, the stud of the class, the guy that everybody believed was going to be there.
Wow.
And the crazy thing is who ultimately made it all the way through that pipeline and became a Navy SEAL, this guy, Alex Gagne, the ugly duckling of the class, the guy that everybody thought not only will he quit, this guy's going to be the first guy to quit. And so what does that demonstrate for you? That demonstrates the truth of this principle, that what it takes, whatever it is that you're aiming at, whatever your aim small, miss small is, who is that hits their target when they pull the trigger? It's going to be that common man or common woman with uncommon desire to succeed. Keyword there being desire.
Yep.
We are not the victim of our circumstances. Your DNA does not determine your destiny. Yes, some people, they do grow up a different way. Maybe some people, they have better privileges than you do from the start. The good news is that's not the determining factor. The determining factor is your desire, your heart, your mindset. How bad do you want it? And so that's kind of where I was at, right? I'm willing to die before I quit. And here's this Navy SEAL. He's got me in his crosshairs. He's pacing back and forth at the end of the run. He looks like he wants to fight me. And I don't even want to project to him that I'm willing or wanting to fight him. I'm trying to
Right.
like
He
have this
has
self-dialogue.
established himself as the superior in this situation. Yeah.
And he's a little nuts, you know. I thought he had a flashback or something on the trail. I was like, what was that all about? Guy physically assaulted me, you know? And so I'm just having this self-dialogue, like no direct eye contact, just use your
Yeah.
peripherals,
Don't
look
poke
him
the
in the
bear.
eyes.
Don't poke the
Right.
bear.
And then boom, here it comes. He just says, hey, if we would have gone another mile or two, would you have stayed with me? And I thought for a second, and I just thought, I'll die before I quit. So I said, Scott, I'll die before I quit. Big old smile on his face. Guy completely changes his demeanor.
Wow.
He goes, great, you want to meet up again for another workout tomorrow? I'm just like, sure. And so that was kind of the start of it. And I thought that's what it was going to be every day. But thankfully, it was no longer like that anymore. That first one was a beat down.
Yeah.
But after that, it was more of a building up with Scott.
Wow. That's incredible. Oh my gosh. There's so many more questions I want to ask you because I know he became a true friend, a mentor. Tragically, that's, as I mentioned in the introduction, that was also a part of your SEAL journey, was actually seeing him murdered in an ambush. And I do think that would be something that would make some people go, okay, if my mentor and friend, was taken out in this way, what am I doing? But that really kind of sealed your resolve to keep moving forward.
Well, the question came up for sure. Like, how do I go on?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to move forward with this? And the voices that I had in my life, from my parents and friends were, don't do it. Dude, if this could
Really?
happen to the invincible Scott, it could happen to you. Look at what happened to him. And so, yeah, I'm turning on the television one day and seeing his face, a smile on the screen, and then in the bottom part of the screen, his birth date followed by a dash in March 31st, 2004. And then it cuts to now the scenes of what was video recorded as the vehicle that he was in Fallujah, Iraq, is engulfed in flames, and more scenes where he and the others that were in the vehicle with him, 3 others, are ripped out and lifeless in the streets, and they're beating and wailing away on the bodies, this angry Iraqi mob, just trying to mutilate them. And they
Wow.
wrap rope around their legs and drag them through the streets and hang them upside down from the Euphrates River Bridge, setting their bodies on fire and chanting over and over in Arabic, Fallujah's the graveyard of Americans. This guy, but at this point, he really was like a second father to me, and I'll just never have the words to describe
Wow.
what that was like. All I can say is that is one of those moments that does radically change you as a human being. You don't go forward the same person from there. It's a whole nother type of adversity. And I had my family begging me now not to go. They knew Scott, so this is very personal for the whole family. So what they were doing, and I know they meant well, but as they're like crying in their rooms, pleading with me not to do this, not to go through, and I'm still teetering, like I'm not sure what I'm going to do because
Yeah.
this wasn't part of the plan. My last
Oh yeah.
conversation with Scott on the phone, which I did not know was going to be a last conversation, he's telling me, all right, Junior, I'm about to go do this thing. He's talking about, going off to Iraq. And he says, I just want you to know something that I have never told anybody that I've ever trained before. He says, I know you're going to make it through SEAL training. And so to hear
Wow.
those words from my mentor, who would never say that before, that's what, man,
Right.
I was dying for him to say those words. We would have the conversation in the truck as we're driving to go do some mountain climbing. He'd say, Junior, you never know who's going to make it. The guy you think will make it doesn't make it. The guy you don't think will make it, he makes it. And I'm just waiting for him to say, but I know you will. And he wouldn't. But now here it is. He's saying, I know you're going to make it. And he's saying he's never said that about anybody. I knew I was going to make it too. But now to hear that from him,
Yeah.
so he's reminding me, says he's going to be back in a couple months. And by the time I start SEAL training, that's when he'll be back. And he says, I'm going to be there. We're going to see him make it through. And so now he's not going to be there.
Wow.
And what is this? Like, I just felt like the whole world got taken out from underneath me. So my parents, my dad, he was having me watch what happened to him, thinking that it would change my mind. He goes, look at this. And I hate looking at it, but
Oh, for sure.
I think I would do this as a father too now, right? To try and scare my son straight. Like, look what they've done. And so I would be looking at it. And I think that's where the stealing of the resolve began to happen. And this is part of our SEAL creed as well. And it has to do with how we deal with adversity. In the SEAL teams, we say forged by adversity. And so adversity is either going to cause you to fail or you're going to be forged by it. And
Yep.
so this is a lesson, I think, for all of us. If you've made it this far in life, if you're listening right now, you have faced adversity already. All right.
Yep.
No one's immune to it. Here's the thing we also have to grasp or come to grips with is that there will be more. There's no getting around it because you don't get accustomed to choose it. Adversity, a lot of times, has to do with outside circumstances that come in, invading your life like a tsunami or a hurricane. You have no choice in it. And
Yep.
so I have to accept right now that more adversity is going to come my way. I'm going to get bad news of some kind. My family at some point is going to go through some type of, suffering. Stinks to think about it, but if you don't deal with this now, if you don't have some prior preparation, you're really going to get ambushed and taken out by it. And so it's imminent, not a matter of if, but when. So if that's the case, I have no control over that. What's the one thing I do have control over? I control the way I respond. I
Yep.
still have a grip there. So I control whether or not that adversity will be what we could call a wing or a weight. Will I allow what hits me to be a weight and just let it sink me, leave me knocked down, never to resurface again? Or do I find a wing in the moment somehow? And that's just really a way to rise to the occasion, to get a little altitude. And so it's very case by case basis. I don't know what the next adversity is that's going to hit me. All I know is I'm going to be looking for the wing in that moment, and I will find it. That's when I'll find it there. If I'm not looking for it, then I'm doomed for
Yep.
failure. And so I could just share with folks, looking back, the way I found the wing in that moment was when we lose somebody, we go back to that last conversation we had with them because that was it. It becomes that much more important. What did we talk about? What was said? And that's when I remember Scott saying to me, Junior, I know you're going to make it through SEAL training. That was the forging process right there. That was the wing in that moment that I was determined I am going to do this, but I want to do it for so much more now. I want to do it in honor and memory of my mentor, Scott Helvenston.
Wow. Okay. Good Lord, man. There's just so much more we could go after, but that's such a good segue that third or that 3-word phrase of forged by adversity. I mean, if this year isn't the year to claim that as your mantra, so many people have been thrown curveballs and we've all had to deal with them in different ways, but it's that whole thing of how are you going to look at it? Are you going to look at it as that insurmountable task or object? Or are you going to say, no, I'm going to be forged by this. I'll be stronger. I'll emerge stronger. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I've got 1,000 more questions I want to ask, but I want to get over to some of the questions that Dream Think doers ask because they're so good. So we're going to try to do this a little bit as let's call it a flash round where it's like 2-minute
Sure.
responses, if possible. I want you to spend 20 on each, but we'll try to go through a number of them as quick as we can. But Julie and Dan Richards asked a great question. She said, what kind of techniques or mental thought patterns have you learned to switch from being overwhelmed by circumstances to being able to focus on doing the things that you can control?
I love that. And so that actually kind of plays into, one of the leadership truths that I try and get across to folks. It comes right out of the SEAL Creed, how important it is to have that ability to control your
Yep.
emotions and actions, regardless of the circumstances. Because not only as an individual, but as a leader, people are going to look to you and how you respond. Think
Yep.
about President Bush during 9/11 when he got the news from Andy Card walking across a classroom, whispering into his ear, Mr. President, America's under attack. The way he responded there, some people have been critical of him, not understanding what an important position he's in as a leader. They've been critical, saying, look at, there's like no emotion. Isn't he going to shed a tear? A little quiver of the chin? What's he doing? But looking back, he says exactly what was going on inside of his head, just like every other American out there. Of course, I have all the emotion, welling up with inside me. But I realize that as I'm getting this information shared with me, that the media is getting it as well. He saw commotion going on behind the cameras, people answering phones, and he knew they're pointing their camera at me. They're capturing the way that I'm going to respond in this moment. The way that I broadcast myself is so important as a leader because he knew if he's falling apart, if he's shedding a tear and showing timidity and any type of weakness to the nation that he's leading, what's going to happen?
Yep.
There's going to be total pandemonium. It's going to cause panic for everybody. But instead, he was very calm, cool, and collected. And so he broadcasted that out. And I think it really set the tone for our nation. So that's so important for leaders as well, especially out in the world, or even this is whole life stuff, even in the household, when
Right.
tragedy does strike, they're going to look to mom and dad, how do I respond? And if you're like running around the chick with its head cut off, you're going to cause your whole family to panic. And so that
Yep.
calmness, as they say in the SEAL teams, is contagious. But there
Mm.
is no hack for this. This is all about prior preparation. And while you can't just pick this up really fast, there is a way you can get faster at it. And so it almost sounds like a paradox. But I would say the more new things that you do that make you
Yep.
feel uncomfortable and cause you to have to try and get comfortable doing it, the better you get at becoming more comfortable quicker. So that all of a sudden
It's
now when
true.
you get introduced to something that's completely new, the learning curve has really tightened down. The first time I ever picked up a Mark 48 machine gun, man, I was shaking. I was trembling. I was very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
with this thing because man, the power that it holds. But then it became an extension of my body. Then it
Wow.
couldn't even get my nerves going. I couldn't even
Right.
get excited anymore because I did it so much. But in SEAL training, you move on. It's a pipeline where you learn so many new things that make you feel uncomfortable. And what happens is that uncomfortable feeling really tightens down. You get
Mm.
very used to, you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And
Yep.
so I would say do a lot of things that
Yep.
make you feel uncomfortable. That's the prior preparation that you can do, so that when you get introduced to something new, the learning curve isn't quite so broad. You can get quicker, but it's not overnight. You get quicker at it by doing a lot of the little stepping stones.
Yep.
Inches equals miles.
Intentionally. I love that.
Yep.
Calmness is contagious. I love it. And as we would say, a dream thing, do experiment often, right? Like it's kind of like you're a scientist, you're going to experiment. You don't know the outcome, but you learn as you go. So I couldn't agree with that more, just trying those new things. So that is awesome. Okay. We'll call this next one under the banner of teams and dreams. Okay. Jeffrey Jorgensen says there's a lots of focus on self-motivation and perseverance in striving to achieve our dreams. We all know SEALs are a team, and building a team is part of success. How do we keep our teams motivated when we're so busy doing what we need to do?
So this is, I think, one of the issues with our culture today is we're living in one of the most narcissistic times. It's like the selfie generation where everyone, as Tucker Carlson would put it, is drowning in Lake Me, right? They're so focused on themselves
Yeah,
when that
yeah,
is not what life is about.
yeah,
Like life is not about like, feelings of satisfaction and personal pleasure. As great as those things are, that's not supposed to be our aim. We're supposed to be investing ourselves in something bigger, something greater than ourselves. And out of that, you actually achieve those feelings of like the self-fulfillment and satisfaction that you were aiming for.
yep,
And so we're living in this era where everyone's so focused on themselves and saying, I'm not looking out for anyone else now. I'm looking out for me. Number one, I'm doing me. I'm doing me. I hate to hear that because in SEAL training, before you go into Hell Week, the instructors have you write on the inside of your hat the things that will motivate you to dig deep when the going gets tough. What no one ever wrote on the inside of their hat that made it, and we all looked around for inspiration, no one wrote their own name.
wow,
What people wrote were other things outside of themselves. The big categories were faith, family, and friends. Looking
mm,
back, that's ultimately what I was doing it for. When I was suffering, I would think about my family. I would think about my faith. I would think about my friends. And so looking out for number one is the opposite of being what we'd call servant leader. In the SEAL teams, we say, humbly, I serve. Here's the order of events. It doesn't start with me, then my buddy, then my team. It's the exact opposite. It's the team first, then my buddy, then me. The me always comes last. The greatest leader of all, whether you love him or hate him, there's one thing you cannot deny about Jesus of Nazareth. He knew how to lead people. He knew how to bring a team together. And he was known for saying, I did not come to be served, but to serve. And he
yeah,
washed the feet of his disciples. And his lowly disciples, it blew their mind so much that here he is, our leader, doing this for us, when we should be doing this type of thing for him, that something came out of that every leader wants and money cannot buy. It's loyalty.
yeah,
So that when he gave them a task to do, they weren't looking out for themselves to do it. They were thinking, how can I go the extra mile for this guy? And have you ever had someone like that in your life? First, you have the prideful, arrogant leader that's like smoke to the eyes. They give you a task and you're just going to do the bare minimum just to
right,
not get fired. But then you have others out there, if you've ever been in touch with one, like for me with Scott Helvenston, where they give you a task to do and you are excited. You can't wait for the opportunity to do this for them, and you want to go above and beyond. Well,
Yeah.
how is that? It's because they were investing into your life. You felt like they esteemed your needs as greater than their own. And so if you really want that family dynamic that's there in the SEAL teams that everyone's obsessed about, it's all about being that person that's willing to cover his buddy's back and not his own. And if everyone's doing that, it does create this atmosphere
Yeah.
of team and family.
Whew. So good. Again, I'm glad we got 4 more hours. We're just getting started. This is awesome. All right. Stephanie Ritter-Matt, she asks a question. What are a few of your takeaways from your time as a Navy SEAL that you apply to your everyday life now?
A few of them we definitely covered down on.
Yeah.
I like adversity comes in so many different forms, right? So
Yeah.
I'm always looking for that wing, not that weight. I know how important it is to control my emotions and actions regardless of circumstances. And I do even mess up at that at times. And I love catching it though. I'll be
Yeah.
better the next time. Like, don't get it twisted. It's not like I flawlessly execute, every
Yeah.
time with these sorts of things. I have tasted what it's like, to fail at something. Here's another takeaway is it's probably better for you to at least try whatever it is that you're thinking about. Like, try rather than not try at all. I love the quote by Theodore Roosevelt. He talks about that man in the arena. He talks
Yes.
about those that don't even get into the arena. There is one thing that is far worse than failing at something, and I would say it's to fail to ever even go for it at all. That is worse. And
Yep.
so you have 3 possibilities. You might achieve, you might try and fail. The worst though is to try neither of those. That quote, I've tried to put it to memory. Hopefully I can
It's
nail
a
it for
long
your
one.
listeners.
It is so good though.
Yeah, he says, it's not the critic that counts.
Yes.
It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who strives to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotion, and who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who in the end, at the best, knows the victory of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails, while daring greatly, so that his place will never be among those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That is a cold place I never want to be. And so that is a takeaway, I think, perhaps right there too.
Dude.
Is
You
whatever
nailed
it is,
that.
go for it.
It was deep inside, baby. That was awesome. Heck yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. So man, we gotta have you come back. This is just the beginning of a great conversation, but we're gonna wrap this up. Chad, what's the best way for people to find out about you? I'm gonna do a little commercial for your book here in a second, but what's the best way for people to find out more about you?
All right, I appreciate that. It's a lengthy email, URL, but it's memorable. It's Navy
Yes.
SEAL ChadWilliams.com. And so that's really the best way that they could find out more about, what I'm up to, where I'm going to be speaking. And they also can get the book there, sign copies of it. And I've got
Yep.
some other merchandise on the website there too. So Navy SEAL ChadWilliams.com.
Navy SEAL ChadWilliams.com. The book,
Oh, and
guys.
probably Instagram. That's probably where I'm touching with, that's where I'm touching base the most. So that's the same title of the book, Seal of God. So at Seal of God on Instagram.
Sweet. All right. So we'll put all that in the show notes too. But guys, this book, Seal of God, is absolutely amazing. You can tell Chad gets fired up, but it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And you will be changed by the book because he's real, he's raw. But it's a beautiful chronicling of both his journey, his adventures as a soldier, but also as a man of faith. And it's absolutely beautiful. So go grab a copy if you want to be inspired. Chad, man, I'm so grateful for your service. Thank you again for your service, but also thanks so much for this time and for your generosity. Is absolutely beautiful and powerful.
The time went by fast. You asked great questions. Just thank you so much for having me on.